Okay, so in this video, what I want to do is introduce you to Adobe InDesign and how to put together a presentation and just explain some of the basics of how this software works. So for the most part, Adobe InDesign is really good for making things like presentations where you're combining a lot of different types of information, uh, things like booklets or portfolios, and presentations like slideshows and stuff like that. So with Adobe InDesign open, you can go to New File or go to File, New. I'm going to choose Document. And just like with other Adobe software, I can choose Print or Web at the top. Again, print is probably better if you're going to be presenting on a screen of some kind. So you would want to know, you could choose your kind of size based on the resolution of the document that you want to make. Or if you are planning to, I'm so sorry, print is better if you're printing, obviously. Web is better if you're presenting on a screen and if you wanted to uh, prepare it for a certain resolution. So we're going to use print in this case. What I want to do is change here to inches. I also want to be in 11 by 17, which, yeah, over here on the left, that's my tabloid size. Again, I'll switch back to inches there. And I wanted to be in portrait under orientation. The other thing is you can change here like how many pages you have, but you can also do that later. You can also change your margins and so on. But we'll leave all that stuff as default for right now, and I'll show you how to add it as you go. So first of all, click OK, and then you should have a blank page just like I see here. Now, zooming in and out, I'm holding Alt and scrolling on the keyboard. To pan, I'll hold space, click, left click, and drag. I am also going to use it in up here at the top where it says Essentials. I like Essentials Classic. It gives you some of the more menus by default like that. Okay, now the first thing I want to do is set up what's called a master spread, and that is something that you do in the Pages panel. So if you don't see the Pages panel over here on the right, go to Window and click Pages. And this will show us all the pages we have in our document. Now, up above the page, and that's the page that I'm on there, we have, I guess maybe now it's called a parent. So I have a none and I have a parent. None just means there's nothing applied to that spread, and I can't edit that. What I do want to do is I want to edit the A parent. So I'm going to double click on that. Now you can see here I have two pages because if this were to be a booklet or a portfolio or something like that, there's an option in InDesign to create facing pages, which means like when you have a booklet open, you see two pages at the same time. And I think actually what we'll do is we'll turn that off because for what we're doing, we don't need that. So I'll go to File, and I think Document Setup. Yeah, right there. So where it says facing pages, just uncheck that. Okay. And then I just deleted the one parent page. So now if I double click on the parent page, anything I do on the parent page will appear on any of the pages I apply it to. So these are like templates in a way. So for example, if I were to make some text, like let's say I wanted to put my name and like a page number that appears on every page, I can do that on my parent and then apply it to all the pages. So over on the left, I'm going to choose the Type tool. You can also get to the Type tool by pressing T on the keyboard and then click and drag to make a text box. So for right now, I'll just type in my name. And under, at the top, under fonts, I can choose the font that I want to use. Yeah, I like this one. And then also when I have that font selected, sorry, so with that font selected, if I go to the Type tool, make sure I have the Type tool selected as well. Up at the top, you should see a couple of options for how you want to have your text be justified within that box. So I can choose, right, left, justify. So like over here on the right, maybe I want to have hit right justify, and I'm actually going to put this up near the top of my page. And we'll make that a little bit bigger. Okay. Now I also have a couple options here, like I could make this all caps if I wanted to. All right. And I'm also going to make a page number. So I'm going to make another little type text box. And I'm going to type page. And then instead of typing a number, what I'll do is I'll go to type at the bottom, or sorry, at the top of the screen, insert special character, go to markers and go to current page number. Now on my parent page, that looks like it's just a letter, but that's like a variable. So anytime I apply the parent to any number of pages within my document, it'll automatically give me the number of that page. Now I'm going to right justify this as well. All right. And let's see, I'm going to change this also to my same font. Why am I so far down? Okay. Okay. Just double check that those are the same size. That's 15 point. That's 14 point. All right. And then I'll place that in the bottom right there. All right. Now you can also use parent pages to create graphic elements that you want to repeat on different pages. So for example, I could go over here to the left where it says line tool, draw a line from the left to the right side of the page. And I could place that kind of at the top. Yeah, so anything I do on here, like if I wanted to make a a zone on my page that's always like a certain color. So for instance, if I made a rectangle, over on the color panel under if I have the fill swatch selected, I can create a fill there. And I just chose black, and I can edit CMYK here. I can just change that to like a lighter gray. I'll turn off the stroke. So that would be, if I wanted that to be like a background for some text or something like that. And then what's great about that is that every time I apply this kind of parent template to a page, it'll be in exactly the same spot. It'll be totally consistent. And if I wanted to change it ever, again, that change would be reflected on every page that the parent is applied to. So this is really helpful for just kind of setting up documents and stuff like that. So now, in order to get back out of the editing of that parent page, I'm going to double click on the page within my layout. And so now I'm on there. And what I can do, so in here I can also add pages. You can see by default it's automatically applying my parent. And you can see there that it's giving it the page number. We can also, if we wanted to have like a title page that didn't have this template applied, I could drag from, that's what the none parent is for, I could drag that onto my page. And then it would just be blank. And so here I could write the kind of title of my project, if I didn't have any typos. All right. Make that my same font. And also, by the way, when you choose a font, you have a number of different, this one has a bunch of them, but anyway, you should have a number of different options. Let's see, I love wide thin, that's a really funny thing. Okay, cool, yeah, that's nice. Okay. Now you'll also notice that I have these kind of like smart guides appearing. So when I drag this around, you'll see like those magenta lines kind of pop up. So for instance, that's telling me that the corner of my box is centered on the page, right? So in order to make those appear, I think I go to View, Grids and Guides, and those are the smart guides. And then I can also turn on or off the snap to guides if I want them to be kind of have my objects be snapped to them and so on and so forth. And you can resize this, right? So you can make the text kind of appear differently. You can also, if you want to like kind of snap the text box or the outline of actually any box to the content of it, you can double click on the grips and it'll like right there, it snapped it to the bottom of my text there. Okay, so let's say I wanted to do, wanted to place an image in here. Is that a PNG? It should be. So if you can drag anything, any type of information in to InDesign. Sorry, any type of image into InDesign, and it'll just drop it like I just did. Before I hit drop, before I clicked though, so when I drag in a piece of like an image, and I click, it'll automatically size that image to, like its actual size, its actual resolution. But if I didn't want to do that, if I wanted to like make it a certain size, I could click and drag instead of just clicking, and that would make it a certain size. Now, one of the funny things, it's actually really useful once you get used to it, but one of the funny things about InDesign is that it automatically creates a cropping window around any image you place. Now, I should point out you don't have to drag and drop images into InDesign. You can go to File, Edit, or is it Place? Sorry, it is File. So if you go to File and you go to Place, or you can also hit Control D on the keyboard, that'll open up a window, and then you can, from that window, you can choose where you want to navigate, and you can choose files, and you can even choose multiple files at the same time if you hold Shift. I won't do that right now, I'll do that in a minute. So I'll click that, and then I'll click and drag so I can size it. If I don't press anything on the keyboard, it'll constrain the image so that it's proportional. If I do press Shift, it'll allow me to stretch it, which I don't want to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and click and paste there. Now, again, one of the cool things about InDesign is that it makes a cropping boundary for you. So let's say I wanted to resize this image. So if I just select it and grab one of the handles and move it, you can see I haven't resized my image, I've just cropped it. I've just changed the boundary of what I'm actually seeing of that image in my document, right? So if I do want to resize it, there's a couple ways you can do that. Excuse me. So if I click on it and then I click on this little kind of circle in the center, you can see now I have a different orange outline. And that's the image itself. So now if I start to resize that, and again, I'm going to hold Shift to keep it proportional. Now I'm resizing the image, but I haven't moved the cropping boundary. So you can see it's still cropping it at the top, but not at the bottom. And if you want to change both at the same time, what you want to do is press Control-Shift on the keyboard and click and drag from the blue boundary, and it'll change both the cropping boundary and the image at the same time. Now, the other thing you're probably noticing is that you have this weird blue outline around everything all the time. So InDesign has a couple different kind of display options. One of them is you can change the display to a low quality display. When you're doing presentations that include like vector graphics, so if it's like a CAD drawing or something like that, that has a lot of information, that's vector information. If you keep your display in high quality display all the time in InDesign, it'll really slow your computer down. And it can even cause issues like have your file crash and so on. Now there's also, of course, there's this display mode where I can see all the boundaries of all the objects, this blue boundary. So if I wanted to turn that off and kind of preview how it would look without this boundary, that's there so I can kind of see where objects actually are, but obviously it wouldn't print like that. So in order to do that, I can go to View at the top and click on Overprint Preview. And you can see when I do that, all the blue boundaries disappear. So that's giving me a better sense of how that page would look without the blue boundaries when I actually print it out, right? And I can toggle that on and off. So Overprint Preview will give me a slightly higher quality display so I can see the images and I can see the drawings at full quality. And of course, it also removes the background. Sorry, the boundary, the blue boundary. The other thing that I should mention about InDesign is that when you put information like images into InDesign, they're not actually in the file. So if I were to go and save this file now, File, Save As, I'm going to save it as an InDesign document so that I can retain all my editing. Call this. Now, if I were to go to my file where I've saved that image that I just placed in there, I'm going to delete that file. Now when I go back to InDesign, you can see immediately that a little icon has appeared over that image. And if I hover over it, it's giving me a warning. It's saying missing link. So when you place any image or a drawing in InDesign, it doesn't actually put it in the document. In other words, it won't be saved as part of the document. It is linked to where that file is on your computer. So if I were to save this InDesign document, take it to another computer, open it, unless I also saved the links and put it on that other computer, none of my images would come out high resolution, and I wouldn't be able to print it at full quality. So in order to fix that, there's a panel called the Links panel over here on the right. And say I did open my file on a different computer, and so the directory of where all my files are has moved. So if I click on this image, and you can see I got the same warning there, missing link. Down at the bottom, I can click Relink, and that will open up a browser window. And then I can click on the image I want to replace it with, or I could go and find where that image originally is. And then the other thing is, you'll notice here there's an option search for missing links. So if you did open it on a different computer, you could then save all your links in a folder, bring that folder to the other computer, and tell it to search that folder, and it'll find all the links that are in that folder, all the images. Click OK, and there we go. So now it's updated. And you can see also that because I linked it to a different image, that background has disappeared, right? So that's also always the case anytime you overwrite a file, save a different type of file in InDesign, it will update. It'll update that file. Now, if I'm going to borrow this image from another tutorial that I did. This was a little diagram where I kind of traced over part of my kind of stitching there in Illustrator. Now I saved a PDF and I saved also Adobe Illustrator file. Now in InDesign, I can also place other types of Adobe file formats. So like a Photoshop file, for instance, I actually could place that in my document here. And you can see when I place that image, it's got all that same information that I had in my Illustrator file. So it's got the picture in the background, and it's got the pen tool diagramming. And again, if I wanted to like zoom in on just one part of this and make it bigger, I could do that with my cropping tool. Snap to my center line. There we go. Here we go. And then, yeah, so say over here I wanted to add some text. I can do that. One of the nice things about just like kind of setting up your documents in InDesign is you can use something called placeholder text. So you go to type, it's your special character. Fill with placeholder text. So that automatically fills up my text box before I've written what I want to write in there, because I just want to see how it's going to look on the page in terms of my layout. I'll switch that over to my regular font here. And yeah, so I can kind of see how that looks as a composition. And I'll turn on overprint, and there we go. So right away, I'd probably want to like line that up with that, right? I guess I should point out, yeah, the other thing you can do is you can create guides in InDesign. So I have my guides turned on. By default, it's going to tell me where the kind of center lines and corners of my page are. But I can also place my own guides. For instance, if I wanted to like line up the bottom of that gray rectangle with my images, and I can even actually do that on my parent page over here. So if I go back to pages, double click on the parent page, you want to have your ruler open. If you don't see the ruler at the top, press Control R. That'll make it appear or disappear. I think you can also get there by going to View, Grids and Guides, Ruler. Well, not in there. Anyway, it's somewhere. I'm not sure where, but you can get to it by pressing Control R. So with my ruler up on the screen, I can click and drag my mouse from that ruler. I can snap to different objects, right? And so these are like guides that I'm placing. You see they show up in the cyan color. And now if I go back to my page that I was editing, you can see I have something on my actual page that I could like snap my image to. And I can just see like how well it's lining up. And then I can also put a like title on here. Oops. Oops. Huh, guess that doesn't work. I was going to try and oops. I'm going to try and copy the style of the font. You can copy paste things just like in any other software. Control C, Control V, or you can go to Edit Copy, Edit Paste. So if I have a style of a font that I like, I was wondering here, if I select this and I use the eyedropper tool. So I've just hit I on the keyboard and then click on that. Yeah, it doesn't do it. All right, never mind. I was wondering if that would copy the style, but it doesn't. There is one way to make a style accessible across pages, like a font, for instance, a font and a size and other properties for text. If I go to a window and I go to styles, go to character styles, I could select this style, for instance, and I can click create new style. And I think I can rename it, title font. And so in here I can also change all the properties of that style, right? And I've done that. It's because I had this text box selected when I created the style, it just copied all those properties. So I'll click OK. So now that's in this character styles table over here. If I wanted to copy that same style to this one, I would just click on that title font style with the text selected there. All right, and then the other wonderful thing about that too is that if I ever wanted to change something, say I decide it's too big, I want to make it smaller. If I edit the style rather than the individual text, so you can see that's changed size, and so has that. So everything with that style applied will be adjusted across my document. It's another little shortcut. Okay, so I think that's kind of enough to get started. Now, if I wanted to, so like I showed you before, you can save this as an InDesign document. That means I'll always be able to go back and edit and re-export it. But let's say I'm done with my presentation and I want to export it to a PDF. How do I do that? If I go to File, Export, Adobe PDF. So I have two options in here. I have Interactive and I have Print. Now, if you made a presentation for a screen and it includes content like videos or sound, you would want to choose Interactive because that'll keep the the interactive quality of that content in your PDF document. Now, because I'm going to print this, I want to change it to Adobe PDF Print, and I'll click Save. And then another set of options will appear, and this is where I can control the quality and kind of also file size of my document. So if I go to compression, I can change in here like how when I save it as a PDF, it'll change the resolution of all of my images, or it can change the resolution of all my images to something less. And the benefit of that is the file size becomes smaller. So I can go to, for instance, if I go to monochrome, I'll change that to like 300. Oops, I didn't mean to press enter that fast. Sorry. File export. Yep, save it. Compression. Okay, so it kept that. There's a bunch of other options in here. I'm not going to play with them. But yeah, compression is the main way that you would change the quality of your print. I think there's also, there's preset qualities, but we're not going to use that. And finally, when I'm ready to print, I can click export. So it says there's overset text on these pages, page 2. I think what that means is that there's text that's going beyond the margins of the page. The margins are those purple and magenta lines around the perimeter. So most printers won't print right to the edge of a piece of paper, so that's why InDesign allows you to set up margins so that you know, kind of keep track of what the printable area is. Now, I know that my printable area is larger than just the half-inch margin than what I've got there, so I'm just going to go ahead and click OK and not worry about it. Also, like if you have text, dragged off to one side or something, it'll call that overset. Or actually, I wonder if that's actually, does that mean this? Oh, you know what? It might mean that, where you have like a text box that's, cutting off some of the text because you've resized the text box. Anyway, I'm not going to worry about that. Okay, and then we go to my folder here. And there it is. If I open it up, there we go. All right. So that's kind of how to set up a presentation in InDesign and export to PDF. And I'll end it there.